Hello and welcome to Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm John Verico and I'm your host, and I'm delighted, as always, to speak to yet another one of the authors in the Cracking the Rich Code series. I get to learn and I get to find out more about them and then share that with you guys. And that's what makes this. And my guest today is also very special. I'll tell you something right now. First responders have always been very close to my heart. And when I found out that she's a retired fire chief, I said, oh, I got to get to know this person a little bit more. Debra Jarvis is a consultant on organizational development, covering topics on leadership and belonging. And wait till you meet her. You're just going to absolutely love her. So let's just bring her in. And here comes Debra. There you are. Hi there.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was so glad. Look at that smile. It's so great to see you. You always have a great smile on your face whenever we chat.
Thank you. It's very important to look at life in a positive light, right? Isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We can't go through life like Eeyore, looking like everything is all, oh, well. Yeah. Then your face
That's
just
right.
droops,
That's
and
right.
then everybody looks at you and they get sad too. So, yeah, let's spread smiles and cheers and keep everything light. I love it. So Debra, now you are relatively new in the publishing world, and you have published in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 19. Very exciting. Um, I'm just going to start off real quick. When you were reached out to and asked to contribute to a volume, a book called Cracking the Rich Code, what had you really feel about that originally?
Well, John, honestly, I paused. I'm a small business owner, and the cost was more than my budget allowed. And and something felt so right about it, though. And so I went ahead, I did some research on Jim Britt, and I spoke with people, and I could find nothing negative about the book or Jim Britt or anything. And I realized that in terms of what I was saying to myself about the cost, I needed to reframe the words I was using in talking to me, from cost to investment. Um, I decided to invest in a long held, unfulfilled dream that I had, right? I'd always wanted to write a book, but you know how life and work and all that stuff gets in the way. This felt like an
Yeah.
opportunity
There's a
to
million
learn
ways
how
to
to write a book.
procrastinate, aren't there?
Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you. And I'm one of the worst. Yeah. But you know what has been so cool about this experience is the monthly mastermind group where the authors get to share with each other. I have learned so much from everybody, you included. So thank you, thank you, thank you. and and there's been this unexpected, well, so many unexpected blessings on the way. And I'll just say one of them. The widow of my first mentor that I talk about in the book, she was so thrilled when I called her that her children and grandchildren could see their father's and grandfather's story honored in this
Oh,
book.
wow.
And so, oh yeah, and it stretched me. In public service, we're taught to focus on serving others, not promoting ourselves. And I'm learning from all of you that that it's not about, the message isn't about my ego, it's about extending my impact. So because of this experience, I'm now committed to writing several books and at least one in 2026. So thank you.
Oh, that's just fantastic. And I come from public service background myself, having worked in government and military for 42 years. And so yeah, it's a different mindset
Yes.
when you're thinking, yeah, I've promoted kinds of things except myself. And yeah, I try really hard. I have to work at promoting myself. It's
Yes.
very much a challenge for people like us who come from that public service outlook. And so you already kind of hinted at some of the things in your chapter, just when you talked about how you had to change the words you were using to make your decision. And your chapter is called Words Create Reality, Use Them Wisely. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about that and kind of uh, what the catalyst was for why you chose to write about this topic.
Well, oh wow, catalyst. Well, first, let me just talk about the chapter just a little
Sure.
bit because I like to start by asking whoever's listening to this podcast, if someone followed you around for 2 or 3 days and counted your positive and negative words, what would they hear? And that
Ooh.
perspective, that changed my life. My first mentor, retired Chief Tom Lorraine, he gently held up a mirror to my face in a way that helped me see that my language, it reflected somebody in survival mode, not somebody who was thriving, right? So he didn't criticize me. He didn't ask about my dream. He asked about my dreams in a way, um, especially about becoming a fire chief, because I had told a lot of people that. By when I met him, I'd been in the fire service for about 3 years, but there were so many people trying to tell me I didn't belong there, right? Um, but he helped me see that the words I was using attracted more of the same. So that's why my book chapter is about using words to create possibilities for ourselves and others rather than reinforcing what kind of feels impossible. And so, yeah, in my life, there's a lot of reasons probably that I could tell you that I do this kind of work. So,
Well, so what kind of things were you saying to yourself, or what you were saying that kind of kept people going along that you don't belong there attitude?
well, I was basically saying, I'm going to prove them wrong. These are jerks. These are people who don't really know me. Who do they think they are, right? Well, that's judging other people. And I was judging them when I really didn't even know them, just like they didn't really know
Right.
me. And how could I get to know them as a person, right? So that I can understand what was behind those words that they were using. Yeah.
And how did you make that shift in yourself?
Oh, gee.
What did you start saying to yourself differently, I guess, is probably a better way to say
Oh,
that.
golly. This work is deeply personal for me, right? I didn't grow up learning many of these skills, at home, in school, or in my career. But I have a brother with special needs. And growing up, I watched him be teased and excluded and ridiculed. And what stayed with me wasn't just the behavior of the kids, it was how rarely adults step in to model better ways of communicating
Oh,
or
yes.
resolving conflict, right? So, and later in the workplace, the feedback I got was what I was doing wrong, not what I was doing well. And I didn't even formally study leadership till college. Uh, the life, everything I learned was from lived experience and typically doing it wrong and having somebody tell me I was doing it wrong. So I invested in all kinds of education and training and different coaching kinds of things and I didn't know I needed a coach, right? Here's this guy, Tom Lorraine, retired fire chief at the fire academy, who I met in Maryland, and he only lived 2 hours north of me in Indiana. And he knew he knew I needed a coach. He knew I needed a mentor, and I didn't even know what that was, right?
So you went to
But
the
he
I'm sorry, real
mentored
quick, you
me.
went to the fire academy in Maryland?
Yes, the National Fire Academy,
Wow, okay.
yes.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, 3 years into my career, it had just started, actually. There was a federal mandate, for this kind of, training, and so they created the National Emergency Training Center, and the National Fire Academy was a piece of that. And and so I found out about it, talked to my boss into signing and letting me go to educational methodology because I wanted to learn how to teach people how to be firefighters without demeaning them. And so many of those kinds of ways, or old traditional ways, were very, I would say, mean-spirited. And I knew there was a better way, and I wanted to learn, right? So I get out to the fire academy, and thinking that's where the best and the brightest are, which is what it was. Everybody said that's what it was. And I heard from my instructors and many other class members that I didn't belong there. And they said it in a lot of ways. Yeah. And Tom overheard them. He was an instructor in another class, and he reached out to me when I was sitting in the student center, um, and just sat down with me and started asking me about my dreams. Right? He didn't even tell me that he'd hired the first woman firefighter in Indiana, and I didn't even know about it. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So he was really other-centered, not self-centered, in a way that inspired me to want to be like that. Right?
When we find those people in our life, it's an amazing shift for so many of us, and it's such a blessing. I know that I was the bullied kid in school. I was the one who was made to feel less than. I was the one who was left out of things all the time. And when I got into the workforce and I saw that happening to other people too, um, I didn't realize it. Subtly, what I started to do was defending the underdog by helping them to be recognized for what they do. And that's how I ultimately evolved to where I am now. But it wasn't until I went into the Navy, and I was already in my mid-20s when I finally decided I wasn't doing hacking it in the civilian world. I had no discipline. I decided to go in the military, and I went into the Navy. And of course, boot camp is all about tearing you down. It's about tearing you down as an individual and bringing you back up as part of a team. And I understand in retrospect what they were doing, and kind of the rationale behind it. And it's the same thing in first responder training and firefighter training and all of that. It's the same concept, right? Bring you down as an individual, and then build you into a team, so that you're not thinking individually. So but it does come across very mean-spirited because it's breaking you down.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it in retrospect, the rationale behind it, but there are better ways, and I didn't learn that until my first boss on my first ship in the Navy. And he was one who basically said, "You're the one who's been trained to do this job. I'm not going to sit there and tell you how to do it. I'm going to trust you to do it." And then I realized, hey, somebody's actually trusting me, which means I have value. And that's how I ultimately started to gain self-confidence and to start to grow. But we find those individuals, we're fortunate enough to find those individuals in our life who can do that, who say those magic words for us, that all of a sudden, the lights come on, and it's full speed ahead.
Well, yeah, and you're inspired to do something because you feel
Yes.
valued. You feel like you're somebody who could do anything, as long as you've got, and we all need support systems. We need that kind of stuff. And I work with teams and leaders in mostly public sector, faith communities, and nonprofits, because that's where my heart is, right? And but they are some of the most meaningful and yet the most complex spaces to work in. When you talk about the military, oh my goodness, you're talking about so many different constituencies, and public leadership is way different than private sector leadership. Yeah, because you answer to so many more stakeholders, elected officials, boards, commissions, congregations, community members, partner organizations. And
The users of
and
your
right now,
services, the beneficiaries of your services,
yes.
depending on what kind of an organization you're in. Yeah. The people that you regulate. There's so many.
Oh yeah. And you know what? For in the work that I do, and I love it. I love to help um, people find what their best practices should be, right? Or their best selves could be. And but typically when I'm brought in to do work in an organization, for example, it's usually because something is broken in their mind,
Yes.
right? And morale is low, or conflict is high, or trust has been eroded. Um, Most of the time, though, what leaders are reacting to is a symptom, not the root
Right.
issue. So I help them slow down,
Mm-hmm.
redefine what the real challenge is, and then help them design solutions that align with their mission, vision, values. And so often they will think, okay, you know, and one of the big things is, if we just had more people, we'd be able to fix the problem. Well, that's jumping to a solution before you even have defined the problem. And that very well may be the solution, but if you're not looking deeper and doing a root cause analysis, then you're going to probably be treating a symptom and not the actual
Yeah.
illness
Yeah.
that's
It's
going
just the
on
Band-Aid
in the
method.
in
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We are definitely of the same cloth, and it's funny. People say, "Hey, John, you don't have video of your presentations and stuff," and I'm like, "Well, most of the time when I'm brought in someplace, it's because they have a problem, and they don't want to publicly admit they have a problem by bringing somebody like me in."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so, well, and it's hard for them to even, admit,
Yeah.
so often we have to look in the mirror to see where some of the problem is, because obviously if there's problems, it isn't just the organization. It's what I don't know about what I don't know about how I'm leading, right?
Right.
And, and so it's so important
How
to
they're
have.
perceived. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. How different we occur differently for different people,
Mm.
and we don't even understand that so often. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the most important thing in our life is how we are perceived by others.
Yes. Yeah. How do we land, and how do we, occur? That's one of my favorite
I
phrases.
like
How do you occur for someone? Yeah.
I'm writing that one down. So your choice of words is really critical here, and your chapter talks about that.
Mhm.
It talks about
Yeah.
the how we use our words. So let's talk a little bit about what and kind of the story you shared.
Well, and the story that I share is about my first mentor and how he helped me see that the words I was using were attracting more negative feedback from. I had my own negative feedback cycle going on because I was complaining, and so when you do that, people are attracted to that. And so if you literally think about all the words that you use every day, you begin to realize that you're going to attract people who use those same kind of words. And I talk about that in my chapter. What I really want people to get out of this, words create reality, use them wisely, is different people have different meanings for the same
Oh yeah.
words. And we have to define, if we're going to talk about integrity as a core value in our organization, what does that mean? And if you were to interview every individual around you about what that word means, you would come up with 1,000 different definitions of what integrity is, right? Right. And so if integrity is being your word, in other words, your words, your actions, your behaviors, the things that you do every day are in sync with integrity and who you say you are as a person, then that's what integrity is. With that said, nobody's perfect. you can't be perfect as a human being. And so it's owning up when you're out of integrity with what you said you were going to do. It's basically saying, I need your help to tell me when that happens again. And it is naming the impact that it had on that person. And then at the end of the day, it's having a system that you set up for yourself so you will get better at not being out of integrity. You'll never be perfect. It's a lifelong learning process, by the way. And that's just one example of one word, right? So, yeah,
it,
I
it,
think what I
there's
want
so many
people
people
to,
that use words like that as
yes,
as a catchphrase, or to sound like a vision statement, or to make it sound like they're, there's a certain impetus that they, or image that they want to project. They don't necessarily behave in ways that correspond to those words.
yeah. That's true. And to be honest with you, we don't always know that's what we're
No.
doing. If you truly have a good friend or a mentor or a colleague, it takes courage for them to tell you that you're making some mistakes, because they might think they lose you as a friend. They might think that they won't get promoted if you're the boss or whatever. And so I typically encourage people to build teams who have the courage to be honest with each other when they need to be honest with each other, right?
And you also
And
have to create an environment where people feel safe to provide that
yes,
feedback.
yes. That psychological safety is foundational, and it's built on trust. And that trust is built on relationships. And those relationships are built on the ability to see someone as a person and not as the task that they
Beautiful.
do or the role that they're
Oh, that is
playing,
so well
right?
put. That is so well put. Hey, everyone, if you're just tuning in, you're about 20 minutes late. You need to go back and watch this from the beginning. Debra Jarvis is a consultant for organizational development and leadership and belonging. And really, we're having this wonderful conversation about the importance of words that we use, the realities that those words create, the words we use to talk to ourselves, and the way we impact others. And hers in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 19. You want to check that out. But we're going to continue our conversation. But I wanted to remind you to go back and listen to this from the beginning, because there's a lot of wisdom being shared here today.
Thank you, John. That's, yeah. I like to think I do, and but please tell me when I'm not. I ask people to hold me accountable, because even in this conversation, I might say something where you need to say, "Ouch, Debra, we need to unpack that."
But it's all about those relationships that are built on understanding, that we're all people here. We're all
Yeah.
humans, which means that we're fallible. But we have to have some
Mhm.
kind of, how many organizations I've seen that sit there and they say things like, even in their statement, it says, people are our best asset, and our most important thing in our organization is our people. And then they cut the training budget and they micromanage people. And like, this is not, that was not your focus, obviously. It's just words.
Well, yeah, and that's being out of integrity with who you say you are as an organization,
Yeah.
or even as a person. The same thing happens, right? And we need to build, you know, people around us who are going to use words that hopefully are going to encourage us to be our best selves, but also at the same time call us out, when we need to make an improvement, and to be who we say we really are. Yeah.
Yeah. Surrounding ourselves with, call them yes men, people who are just going to agree with us all the time, that doesn't do us any benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. What I really want people to take away from this podcast, even if you never read the chapter, but
Oh, read
is
the
to
chapter.
have
Read
the
the chapter.
courage to take risks. Yeah, well, please read the chapter. Yes. um, but and that's one of my challenges, isn't it? I want people to have the courage to take risks, to follow their dreams, and to choose curiosity over
I love
judgment
it.
with the words that you're using, especially in difficult moments when you'd rather label somebody a certain name or a certain word. Um, we need to care enough to be genuinely curious about why somebody thinks or behaves differently. Um, we need to communicate that respect for who they are as a person, even when we don't agree. Those words, they shape what you believe is possible, not just about yourself, but how others see possibility. And if we pause and we listen with our hearts, not just our ears, we choose curiosity over judgment, we can open doors instead of closing them. So, yeah.
And those doors will open for others as well as ourselves. And the thing is,
Yes.
and we've alluded to this, but basically what it comes down to is that everything we do and say impacts other people, and we need to have an awareness of what that impact is, um, and see if that truly aligns with where we want to be and how we want to be seen and how we want to be perceived.
Yeah. And having that safe environment where they know that you really want to know what they think, and there's not going to be any repercussions if you're that kind of honest with somebody, and realizing that their words, they may not have as much experience in using words that are encouraging or inspiring, right? And being willing to know that it really doesn't matter, especially as a leader. It, people will attack the person, but they're really not attacking the person. They're attacking whoever would be serving in that position, who is changing something and making things more difficult in their mind, right? And so caring enough to really listen to that, what's those feelings beneath the words, and not judging what they're saying as being poorly said, for example. It doesn't matter, right? We need to listen, and we need to then inspire them with the words we use that will encourage them to want to maybe do something different in the future. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We've been having a terrific conversation with Deborah Jarvis, and this time goes so fast. I say that all the time. We get into these great conversations, and Deborah, we can probably chat for hours about this stuff and just compare notes about all kinds of things, especially coming from the public sector, because people don't realize the differences between the private sector and the public sector, and the way people need to interact with each other. And I think lessons could be learned on all sides. I think we can learn something from each other. I think we can find ways to work together, to live together, just by treating each other with just a smidge more respect and a little bit more courtesy, and understanding that we're all human and we are not infallible. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yes, and John, I wanted to thank you for your service in the military. I know how difficult that is. I've worked with many folks who've been in the military, and while I wasn't in the military myself, although it would have probably been very good for me in helping me be a better person, I just want to thank you for your service.
Well,
It's
thank
an
you. But you know what?
amazing
Being in
contribution.
the fire service is uniform service as well. And it's public service. And it's really just the same thing. It really is. So thank you for your service to the public, uh, and to the community and to people. And I think that's why I think we've bonded is because we're both very much service oriented. Um, I joined
Yes.
the Navy for selfish reasons originally. I I needed some discipline in my life, and I said I probably need to go in the military or something to get it. I didn't want to be shot at or crawl through the mud, so the Army and Marine Corps were out, and I had a fear of heights, so the Air Force was out. And I said, well, I do know how to swim, so I wound up in the Navy. But but in that service, I learned so much about how we have value and how we what we do actually matters, and how to better treat people, treat each other in order to be able
Yes.
to get a better outcome for all. And it learned
Yeah.
probably the most important lesson, and I know you know this one, is that it's not about us as
Yeah.
individuals. It's not about who we are. It is about what we can accomplish together. So
Yes.
you
And
can't
we're
put a fire
designed to
out by
be that
yourself. It's all about being part of a
way.
team.
No, you can't. We're designed to be in community with each other, right? Because
Absolutely.
if we have a whole group of people, they've got lots of strengths that are going to make up for whatever weaknesses each individual person has. So we're strong as a team. Yeah.
We are strong as a team. And what a great way to wrap this up. Debra, how do people get in touch with you? I know that LinkedIn is probably your preferred method, right? So you're Debra Jarvis on
Yes.
LinkedIn. For those of you who are not looking at the screen, it is Debra, and last name is Jarvis, Jarvis.
Yes.
Definitely check her out, connect with her on LinkedIn, and most importantly, read her chapter in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 19. The chapter is called Words Create Reality, Use Them Wisely. And I think in today's episode, we have used our words, or at least you've used your words, very wisely. Deborah, thank you again for your time. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be seeing you. And thank you all for listening. Check this out on YouTube. And
Thank you, John.